Hi, I'm Jody with Beargrass Thunder, and this is another Awkward Maps Explained. Today we're going to be looking at the city of Bowling Green, the third largest city in the state of Kentucky, and we're going to go into how the city of Bowling Green designs its roads. So without further ado, let's get started. What I have here is the racial dot map courtesy of the Cooper Center at the University of Virginia. This shows the 2010 census data for the city of Bowling Green. And so when we look at this map, we see that there is a lot of density right here. And that's WKU. College students live on campus. There is a ton of people that live here. But immediately next to it, we see this blank spot. And then basically there's this whole line of blank right here. And what that is the railroad in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And anyone who has lived there knows what I'm talking about. There is a railroad that goes directly through the center of town. Let's see what's north of the railroad and the racial makeup of these neighborhoods. It seems to be much more black, much more Hispanic than just a few blocks south. As we go east, there are a ton of blank spots in the northeast part of Bowling Green. And what that is zoned commercial or industrial. And as a result, no people can live in those areas. So when we look across this blank spot, what do we have? But we have the community of Shake Rag. Yet again, another historical black neighborhood in the city that is very much cut off from the white populations in downtown. Let's look at some of the road connection here. What I have here is a map. Can you cross Bowling Green in a straight line? Because when we look at historical data of Bowling Green, this is a postcard from 1871. Bowling Green was a very well-designed city at the time. You notice that these roads are all in a grid for the most part. So that means 90-degree corners, two roads that intersect. You can build properties on all corners of that intersection. And when we look at this historical map, we see the train track, and it's going through town. But the train track before 1950 also carried people, not just items or goods. So we had a passenger rail station in the city of Bowling Green that took you to Louisville and Nashville, as well as other cities throughout the South. When we look at this map, you have connection. You have the ability to go across the areas of the city. And so when we look at what has happened here, there are a lot of streets that have been converted into one-ways. And why do they convert into one-ways? Well, theoretically, it's to get cars through the city, but really it's to get white commuters through the city as fast as possible. And we can see that Bowling Green actually has two different one-way street conversions that are not in the 1871 plan. But when we look at Cemetery Road, Fairview Avenue splits into 6th and 7th here. And then on the north side of Bowling Green here, Kentucky Street, 31W, also splits between Kentucky and Adams. And this positioning of it is very strange. It almost makes this L across the city. But when we look at the racial dot map, this is also where the industrial zoning is. So we have these minority neighborhoods that are on the north of the railroad tracks that are cut off by two one-way streets where the top speed is over 35 miles an hour. And then you have Shake Rag, which is cut off by two one-way streets where the speed is at least 35 miles an hour. And they just so happen to be both minority populations. It's almost eerily coincidental to what happened in Louisville with the one-way streets and Ninth Street divide, and I think that we can start seeing patterns in our cities as it relates to how they were planned specifically to target these communities. As further evidence of this, we can see this map, which is, can you cross the railroad tracks and go north of Bowling Green or to downtown? And this is every single road that crosses the railroad. So we look here and we have one road that connects, and it looks like that goes up to 6th Avenue. It merges into Highway 68 and Gordon Avenue. This is far east Bowling Green. There's no other road except for 6th Avenue that actually goes across the railroad and doesn't just end immediately like it does as you get closer to WKU. So what this shows is that from the 1800s to now, there has been no active thought into how to reconnect these sides of Bowling Green. So when we look at this, we see that there are 5 roads that immediately end once they cross the tracks. So I wanted to show you another example of how these neighborhoods were deliberately targeted. This is a map of every railroad crossing in the city limits of Bowling Green. There are a lot of them. There are at least 19 that go through Bowling Green, and only 6 of them go over the railroad track, which means that every single other crossing in the city limits, you have to wait for the train. That really hurts any business that is north of the divide here. Look at downtown Bowling Green. We got 6 crossings. But here on the east side of Bowling Green, which is nowhere near the university or College Hill, you can go under the track. On the other side of Bowling Green here on Russellville Road, you can also go under the track. But if you live anywhere north in the city, it is now impossible to go across. And it's been that way for the past 200 years, and not a single thing has been done about it. Really kind of makes you think. We just wanted to show some of the different ways that these roads were already designed, but I also want to talk about some of the future of Bowling Green public transit, because I am very excited for the future here. I think that with a little finesse, we can actually change the roads in Bowling Green back to that grid pattern and allow for more connectivity between our neighborhoods. Let me just show you what I mean. This is the map of Bowling Green Transit. This is the BG Go bus that is in the red, blue, purple, and yellow. But also, I have the WKU routes, which go across the campus and help with mainly college students. If you notice, WKU's bus only goes to the majority white neighborhoods of campus. And what I mean by that is when we look at the racial dot map, WKU, most of that neighborhood is majority white. And so I'm looking for the areas that go across the railroad track, and there aren't any. And conversely, when I look at the Bowling Green transit routes, what I'm seeing here is that, yes, these routes are circulatory, they hit a wide area of the neighborhood that they service, but they only service one specific area of the city, and there's no intermingling. And for a public transit service, you can do a lot more with the roads that you have. And so this is a map that I've made using the existing roads in Bowling Green, but if we were able to partner with different regional transit services that service existing cities, this map would look something like this. So every dot you see here is a potential transit stop. You can obviously see that the grid here is back. We have a huge amount of servicing across the neighborhoods, which if we compare that to what exists currently, there are a lot more stops that can be serviced. Look at all this infill here, and especially in Shake Rag. But on a whole, if we zoom out, we can actually hit up the suburbs and every major area in Warren County. But if we wanted to even go farther than that, what if we were able to get state grants for regional transit hubs across Western Kentucky? Fort Knox, Fort Campbell. We could probably finesse Nashville and Owensboro into giving something, but one of my favorite things here is that this would theoretically take you from Paducah to Bowling Green to E-Town to Fort Knox using one service. And for people that can't afford a car, it is so important. And for people that are getting too old to drive, it is so important to try to find services that we can plan for and build now instead of having an emergency 20 years from now. I think Kentucky is overdue for regional transit services, whether that be passenger rail, a giant bus network, but our parents are eventually going to get too old to drive. And I don't want to be in a city that lets that happen. So I'm asking anybody who is interested in fixing the cities around Kentucky to have better transit services, please reach out, beargrassthunder@gmail.com, or just send us a comment on YouTube, our Facebook page, our Instagram. And please don't forget to subscribe to our content. We have more videos coming every single week. Well, this has been another Awkward Maps. I'm Jody Dahmer. See ya.